This court is now in session. Judge Henry Warren Bishop is now in the house.
My name is Henry Warren Bristol. I am the judge for the 3rd Judicial District of the Territory of New Mexico. I've been judge of this court for 8 years. My political opponents say I'm biased, that I favor the members of the so-called Santa Fe Ring in my judgments. That's scurrilous, and I vehemently deny it. There is no Santa Fe Ring. It is an invention of hateful newspaper editors.
My name is Simon Bolivar Newcomb. I'm the prosecuting attorney for this case, Territory of New Mexico versus Henry Antrim, alias William Bonney, also known as Billy the Kid. Now, the charge is murder in the first degree. Now, some people claim that politically, I support this Santa Fe Ring. I don't deny it.
My name is Alfred Fountain, defense attorney for Henry Antrim. You know him as Billy the Kid. Some people say I'm an implacable political foe of the Santa Fe Ring. You folks may not even know what that means. Who is the Santa Fe Ring? Go home, please, look it up. This is a group of attorneys, politicians, cattle barons. They think they rule the county. They accept no competition. They're accused of selling land they don't even own. Look them up when you go home. Remember, we're going to have a jury here that will give a verdict. You folks are in the court of public opinion. That counts too.
Court is in session. Bailiff, ask the sheriff to bring in the defendant.
Sheriff Southwick, bring in the defendant, please.
State your name.
William Henry Antrim,
And how do you plead?
not guilty.
Mr. Newcomb, is the prosecution ready?
Yes, Your Honor, the prosecution is ready.
Proceed with your case.
Your Honor, I'd like to move for a postponement of this trial.
A postponement?
Yes, sir.
For what reasons?
Well, we have subpoenaed the New Mexico Territorial Governor, Samuel Axtell. He's a key witness here. I do not see him in the court. He's not present, and we cannot produce a fair trial without his presence, Your Honor.
Governor Axtell has informed me that he won't be present, so your motion is denied.
I seriously object. We cannot have a fair trial without that key witness. We need the governor.
So noted, Mr. Newcomb. Please proceed.
Your Honor, I call Saturnino Baca.
Territory calls Saturnino Baca.
State your name.
Saturnino Baca.
And what is your profession?
I'm a primary school teacher in Lincoln, New Mexico.
Now tell me, were you in Lincoln on April 1st, 1878, about 9 o'clock in the morning?
Yes, sir. I was standing on the street outside my schoolroom, speaking with my son. My son, Bonificio, is a teacher in the same school.
And what did you see about then?
I was looking down Main Street, looking west. I seen Major Brady, Billy Matthews, George Heineman, Jack Long, and George Pepin walking down the middle of the street toward me. All at once, I heard a shot, followed immediately by a volley of shots. maybe 8 or 10 shots total. On the first shot, I seen Major Brady fall to the ground on his back. Then I seen George Heineman stumble and fall. He immediately started screaming. You never heard a man scream the way he did. The other 3 men ran for cover, taking shelter in Senora Cineros' casa across the street.
Now tell me, where did the shooting come from?
From behind the horse corral wall at the Tombstone store.
And what did you see next?
I saw the kid run out from behind Tunstall's corral.
Now, you say the kid. When you say the kid, do you mean the defendant, Henry Antrim?
Yes,
Please point out the man you're referring to.
that's him there. He ran out just as soon as the shooting stopped.
Your Honor, let the record show that the witness pointed to the defendant, Henry Antrim. Now, Mr. Baca, after Mr. Antrim ran out, what did he do next?
He ran to Major Brady's body.
And what happened then?
Billy Matthews fired at him. Billy turned tail right quick and ran back behind the corral wall.
Now, you say Billy Matthews. Do you mean Lincoln County Deputy Sheriff Jacob Matthews? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And when you say Major Brady, you mean Lincoln County Sheriff William Brady. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, tell me, did Sheriff Brady die?
Yes, sir. I judge he died instantly. He was shot in the head.
How terrible. And what about George Heineman?
He was hit by 2 bullets, one in the neck and one in the left side.
And you say he screamed when he fell?
Yes, sir. I seen he was bleeding, something terrible. He started hollering for a glass of water.
Did you give the poor man a glass of water?
One of the women did.
Did he die?
Yes, sir. He took about near 1 hour. We didn't have no doctor in town. He was in terrible pain.
No more questions.
Sir, you say the shots came from behind the corral wall of Mr. Tunstone's store?
Yes, sir.
And are you sure about that?
Yes, sir.
How can you be so sure?
I seen the gun flashes. They came from there.
You say you saw gun flashes. Did you actually see who was firing the gun?
I seen some heads. They were poking up over the corral wall and firing.
Heads.
Heads. That's what I saw.
Anybody ever see a head fire a gun? I didn't. No more questions right now.
You are excused.
Your Honor, I call Bonifacio Baca.
Territory calls Bonifacio Baca.
State your name, please.
Bonifacio Baca.
Now, are you Statonino Baca's son?
Yes, sir, I am.
Now, Mr. Baca, were you standing outside in the street in the town of Lincoln when Sheriff Brady and Deputy Hyman were killed?
Yes, sir.
Tell us, son, what did you see?
Well, the first shot killed Sheriff Brady. The aftershots killed Deputy Heineman.
Uh-huh. Now tell the court what happened next.
Well, I seen Billy the Kid run out to Sheriff Brady's body.
Billy Kidd, you saw him shoot from behind the corral wall?
Yes, sir, that I did.
Then he ran back behind the corral wall?
Yes, sir.
Now, did you see who shot Sheriff Brady?
Yes, sir, I seen Billy Kid do it. I seen his head raised over the wall.
That's a lie. Now, son, you keep it down. No more questions, Your Honor.
Like father, like son, they see heads. Mr. Baca, you understand you're under oath?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. You say you saw the defendant, Henry Antrim, the defendant, shoot Sheriff Brady.
Yes, sir.
And how did you see him?
I seen his head raised above the corral wall.
Heads. Heads. How tall do you think that wall is?
I don't rightly know that.
Isn't it true that that wall is considerably taller than just about any man we know?
Some, yes.
How tall do you think the defendant is?
That I don't rightly know.
Well, let's find out. Stand up for a second. Well, I'd surprise you if I told you Mr. Antrim is, about 5 feet 8 inches tall.
No, it wouldn't.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Antrim. Would it surprise you if I told you that Mr. Tunstall's corral wall was somewhere between 8 and 10 feet tall?
I don't know that. I mean, if you say so.
Do you still say you saw the defendant's head above the wall?
Yes, that's what I've seen. I'm certain of that. And other people seen it too.
That's another lie.
It's no lie. I know what I saw.
Your Honor, I move to strike that comment because that's the last sentence. That's just hearsay. That's not valid evidence. Other people hear that.
The jury is to disregard the witness's last sentence.
No more questions for the moment. Your excuse, Mr. Bond.
Your Honor, I call Jacob Basil Matthews.
Territory call Jacob Basil Matthews.
State your name, please.
Jacob Basil Matthews.
Are you also known as Billy Matthews?
Yes.
Okay. Now, on April 1st, 1878, were you a deputy sheriff for the county of Lincoln, New Mexico?
Yes, sir.
Now, how did you happen to be with Sheriff Brady that morning?
Well, Sheriff Brady had asked me to meet him at the Murphy Dolan store. So I arrived, and the other deputies were there, but the sheriff arrived about, a little before 9. So altogether, there was 5 of us: me, Sheriff Brady, George Papard, Jack Long, and George Heidemann.
Okay. Now, what was the purpose of this meeting?
Well, Sheriff Brady said we were going to arrest McSween.
Arrest Mr. McSween. When you say McSween now, do you mean Mr. Alexander A. McSween? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Why were you going to arrest Mr. McSween?
Well, McSween had embezzled $10,000 from the estate of Emil Fritz, and Sheriff Brady had a warrant for it.
Why did you pick that particular morning to arrest him?
Well, it was the opening day of the court term, and McSween had made it known that he was going to be there.
Tell the court what happened after you left the Murphy Dolan store.
Well, we left the store heading east towards the courthouse. We were walking with Sheriff Brady and George Hyman in front of me. And just about the time that we passed the Tunstall Corral gate, Sheriff Brady was hit with a shot in the head. And then really quickly, there was a series of shots that came from the corral, I'd say probably 10 or so. And so I took off and ran over to Mrs. Cisneros' porch to take cover.
Did you see George Hyman fall?
I didn't, but I heard him scream when he was hit.
Now, what did you do when you reached the shelter of Mrs. Cisneros' house?
I began to fire back at the corral.
What happened next?
Well, I saw Billy run out from behind the wall and over to Sheriff Brady's body, and so I started firing at him, and he ran back.
Now, by Billy, you mean Mr. Antrim.
Yes.
Are you absolutely certain it was Mr. Antrim that ran over to Sheriff Brady's body?
Yes, absolutely. I know Billy. I've seen him many a time.
No more questions.
Mr. Matthews, did you see who shot Sheriff Brady?
Well, everything happened really quickly, but it was Billy.
Mr. Matthews, did you, after the shooting, did you search the corral where the shooting came from for some kind of evidence?
Yes, sir.
Did you find any spent cartridges?
No, sir.
Did you find any boxes that people could stand on to get to over a fence that's 10 feet tall?
No.
Did you find a ladder that people could climb up?
No.
How about a rope to climb up the wall?
No.
No. But we saw heads. Lots of heads, folks. Okay? Is it not true that there are 4 or 5 portholes drilled in the corral wall, the exact place where the shooting came from?
Yes, that's right.
So it would have been possible to fire through these holes without anyone seeing who was doing the firing.
I suppose so.
You know how high that corral wall is?
It's about 8 feet tall.
Now you say you intended to arrest Mr. McSween that very morning.
Yes.
Okay. Who authorized the arrest?
Judge Bristol, because McSween had embezzled money from the estate of Emil Fritz.
You say Mr. McSween had stolen money from the Fritz estate.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Matthews, is it not a fact that the grand jury that met right after Sheriff Brady's shooting completely exonerated Mr. McSween of the charge of stealing money from the Fritz estate?
Of that, I can't say.
Okay. Your Honor, I submit the grand jury here a report. Exhibit number 1. Please take a look at it.
The exhibit is admitted.
Thank you very much. Mr. Matthews, here's the exhibit. Okay. Mr. Matthews, this is the report issued by the grand jury that I just referred to. Will you please read the last paragraph to the jurors and our guests?
We, the grand jury, were charged to investigate the case of Alexander A. McSween, charged with the embezzlement of $10,000 belonging to the estate of Emil Fritz, deceased. This we did, but were unable to find any evidence that would justify that accusation. We fully exonerate him of the charge and regret that a spirit of persecution has been shown in this matter.
Fully exonerate. The two important words on this document. Fully exonerate. You understand what that means?
Yes, sir, I do.
Mr. Matthews, you're some kind of a secret business partner with Murphy and Dolan and the late Emil Fritz.
I am a business partner, but I am not a secret partner.
So, you had a personal business interest in pretending that Mr. McSween had embezzled $10,000, which he didn't, because you wanted all the money for yourself, right?
No, my business dealings had nothing to do with my performance as a deputy sheriff on that day.
We don't believe you, Mr. Matthews. I don't think the jury believes you. All we've heard so far are a bunch of heads. Hey, the jury of public opinion, do you believe the witnesses about the heads? Let me hear for it. Let me hear it. Thank you very much.
Your Honor, this is highly irregular.
It is highly irregular. Do you have any more questions, Mr. Fountain?
No more questions.
You are excused, Mr. Matthews.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Newcomb, please call your next witness.
Your Honor, we rest our presentation.
Very well. Mr. Fountain, proceed with your case.
Where am I? Who am I calling? Who am I calling now?
Albert Howell.
Albert Howe, of course. I call Albert Howe as a witness.
Territory calls Albert Howe.
Please state your name.
My name is Albert Howe.
And Mr. Howe, what do you do for a living?
I'm a merchant.
Mr. Howe, I'm going to ask you about the murder, not of Brady, but of a man named John Henry Tombstone.
Objection! Irrelevant, immaterial, and incompetent.
Your Honor, please, we will show the relevancy of bringing the murder.
No. We strenuously object. Strenuously. The killing of Mr. Tunstall is outside this case. It has nothing, absolutely nothing, to do with the vile murder of Sheriff Brady.
We will demonstrate otherwise, if we can proceed.
I will allow you to proceed. All the testimony in this matter will be taken with a great deal of allowance on the grounds you have just stated.
Thank you. Mr. Howe, were you in Sheriff Brady's posse?
Yes, I was.
Posse on February 18th, 1878.
Yes, I was.
How did you come to be in that posse?
I was in Copeland Saloon when Sheriff Brady came in and asked for men to join a posse.
Did he tell you what the purpose of the posse was?
No, sir, not then.
Did you ever learn what the purpose of the posse was?
Yes, sir.
Tell the court, please.
He was going out to Tunstall's cow camp to levy his cattle.
And why was Sheriff Brady confiscating Mr. Tunstall's cattle?
Because he was a partner with Mr. McSween, and Mr. McSween had swindled $10,000 from Mr. Fritz's estate.
Of course, he's because it's exonerated, okay. And how many men in the saloon joined this little posse?
I should say maybe 30.
30 men in the posse. And tell the court what happened next.
We rode out to Tunstall's cow camp, but only Mr. Tunstall's hired hand was there. He told us that Mr. Tunstall had left for Lincoln, and he was driving a string of horses with him. So Matthews ordered the posse to go after Mr. Tunstall.
Was it Sheriff Brady? Did he lead the posse that chased after Mr. Tunstall?
No, sir. He put Mr. Matthews in charge.
By Mr. Matthews, you mean Deputy Jacob Matthews? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Was George Heineman in the posse that went after Tunstall?
Yes, sir.
Did Deputy Matthews lead the posse himself that left cow camp and chased Mr. Tunstall?
No, sir. He put Buck Mormon in charge, stationed after Tunstall.
Do you know why? Wouldn't it have been more regular for Matthews to lead the posse?
Yes, sir. I don't know why he stayed behind at Tunstall's cow camp.
Did you have any concerns about the nature of this posse?
Yes, sir, I did. I heard Buck Morton say, "Hurry up, boys. My knife is sharp, and I feel like scalping someone." That made me think they were going to kill someone.
So the man who wanted to scalp someone is leading the posse that chased after Mr. Tunstall.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Howard, how did you see Mr. Tunstall killed?
I saw him killed. We rode after Mr. Tunstall's party for maybe 30 miles. We could tell from their tracks that there was at least 5 of them. They were driving horses, like I said. Just as we came off the bench into Pentecostal Canyon, we seen them on the slope below us. Buck and Tom Hill raced the horses down into the canyon. Mr. Tunstall wheeled his horse and faced him. Hill called out to him, "Mr. Tunstall," saying he wouldn't be hurt.
Wouldn't be hurt. You won't be hurt. What happened next?
Mr. Tunstall rode up close. Buck and Hill drew up their guns, resting their stocks on their knees. Suddenly, Buck fired and shot Tunstall in the chest, and then Hill fired and shot Tunstall through the head.
You wouldn't be hurt. You won't be hurt. Did you see them murder Mr. Tunstall?
Yes, sir, I seen it. Them was the particulars.
Did Mr. Tunstall have a gun?
Yes, sir, a pistol in a scabbard in his belt.
Did he draw his gun? Did he fire on the posse?
No, sir.
Did you see what happened to Mr. Tunstall's pistol?
Yes, sir. Buck took it off Mr. Tunstall's body and removed 2 loads and threw it down by the body.
You know why would Buck Martin do that?
I don't know, but I heard later that he was claiming that Mr. Tunstall fired at him first.
Objection. Hearsay, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Your witness.
Your Honor, I have no questions.
You are excused, Mr. Howell. Mr. Fountain, call your next witness.
You. I call Florencio Gonzalez.
Territory calls Florencio Gonzalez.
Your name, please.
My name is Florencio Gonzalez.
And what do you do for a living?
I'm the probate judge of Lincoln County.
On February 18, 1878, did you recover the body of Mr. Tunstall?
Yes, sir, I did.
And who asked you to do that?
Billy, sir. He told me he was riding with Mr. Tunstall when a party of men murdered him. Mr. Tombstone, I mean, in cold blood.
By Billy, you mean Mr. Henry Ansem right here?
Yes, sir.
How did you find the body?
Billy told me about where they'd done it. He said he wanted Mr. Tunstall to have a decent burial. When I got to the area, I scouted out for traces. That's how I found Mr. Tombstone.
And in what condition did you find the murdered body?
I found Mr. Tunstall's body lying by the side of his horse. The body had been laid by some persons in the position in which I found it. A blanket was placed under the body and one over it. Mr. Tunstall's overcoat was placed under his head, and his hat was placed under the head of his horse.
Under the head of the horse, you mean? You mean the horse was murdered too?
Yes, sir. They shot him in the head.
Anything else you can tell us about the body?
I found Mr. Tunstall's skull badly broken, like he was pistol whipped. He was shot in the head and right shoulder.
And did you find his revolver?
Yes, sir. It was laid next to the body. When I examined it, there were 2 chambers empty, but there were no shells in the empty chambers. The other 4 chambers had cartridges in them.
Nothing further. Thank you.
Your Honor, I have no questions for the witness.
You are excused, Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you.
Mr. Fountain, call your next witness.
I call Mrs. Susan McSween.
Territory called Susan McSween.
Bates! Secure my mouth! Ladies trying to get to court.
Has anybody seen?
What is it?
She's coming from up here.
What in order?
She's coming from the audience here.
I see her in the back of the courtroom.
Thank you so much.
Susan McSween.
Back away from me.
There she comes.
Mrs. McSween.
The nerve.
Susan McSween.
Why this drama?
Sheriff, could you kindly help the lady up the stairs?
Please assist
I do appreciate it.
Please assist Mrs. McSween.
I must tell you that right, Sheriff. How's my head and back? Is it fine? Thank you. Good afternoon, Colonel Fountain. It's such a pleasure.
Order. Please, Mrs. McSween. This is too dramatic.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, afternoon as it may, David. You left your calling card on my parlor table.
Oh my God.
That is not a coffin note. Just take it. You need some help with that.
No, I won't.
This is a typical entrance for Mrs. McSween.
Yes. Come right in, Mr.
This is highly
Newcomb.
irregular.
You're highly irregular, Your Honor.
It's Mrs.
Mr.
McSween.
Thank you. Always a friend.
Over the
Always
lady.
a friend. Yes, I know. Hold on. I have your son for you, too.
And when she's good and ready, this trial will begin.
You're always such a good friend. Now,
Obviously, not before.
Please take a seat.
Please take a seat.
I'm taking it just, sir, please understand, I am married to a prominent attorney in this territory, all right? I have social contacts here, and I feel like I have a right to say hello to them.
Well, that's all very well, Mrs. McSween, but we need to proceed with the case.
Let me proceed. Let me just get mine.
Please have a seat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
As if we don't know who you are, please state your name.
Oh, yes, thank you. My name is Mrs. Sue Ellen McSween, a.k.a. Mrs. Alexander McSween.
Are you the wife of Mr. Alexander McSween, the attorney?
Yes, sir, I am, Colonel Fountain. And I just want to let you know, I am so endeared to you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Oh, you're welcome. For that exoneration.
Were you in Lincoln on the evening of February 18th, 1878?
Why, yes, sir, I was. That's
Please,
where I live.
tell the court what you experienced that evening in a
Well,
controlled manner.
what type of controlled manner, sir? I'm not understanding.
Just tell the court.
Would you just like me to speak honestly
Absolutely.
or be in control? Is somebody controlling this conversation, sir?
Speak away.
Okay, thank you. I will. Yeah, so that evening, probably around 5 p.m., darling Billy rode up to my house, clear around supper time. His horse was rode out, and he was wild-eyed. And he told me, with tears in his eyes, that Mr. Tunstall had been murdered in cold blood, hired by the Santa Fe ring, that Mr. Newcomb knows.
Did he tell you how Mr. Tunstall was murdered?
Yes, he did. He told me that they were all riding out on the plain, and they got word that the sheriff was going to send a posse out there, a large posse to kill Mr. Tunstall, Your Honor. Now, you know homicide is not legal in this county or any county in the United States or territory. I want justice here today, sir. I want justice here today. Mr. Tunstall approached the posse against the sound advice and experience of Mr. Bonney. They told him, John, don't you approach. In fact, Billy said, run, John, run. They shot him in cold blood. The posse was shooting, they were shouting. Mr. Tunstall didn't run. They killed him. That's what Billy told me.
Did Mr. Gonzalez bring Mr. Tunstall's body to your house the next day?
Yes, he did, Colonel.
Did you see the condition of that body?
Yes, sir, I did. Mr. Gonzalez brought him strapped on a burro, wrapped in a filthy horse blanket. Now, we took him out, we laid him out in my sitting room. Dr. Eli and I did. Poor John was shot in terrible shape. As a matter of fact, a sight I will never forget. It shook my heart to the core. His forehead, his face was beaten aubergine. Now, Billy, aubergine, that means purple, if you want to continue with your French. It was beaten purple. Hard to forget. Hard to forget. Took us a long time to prepare Mr. Tunstall, get him cleaned up. Now, Dr. Eli and I we did the embalming. And Mr. Bates, my hired hand, as y'all know, he was able to build the casket with his own hands, and we laid poor John in it.
Did you have a funeral ceremony for Mr. Tunstall?
Of course we did, Colonel Fountain. Of course we did. We had it at my home. The next morning, Dr. Ely, he just gave the most moving obituary, read the Bible. We all cried. Everybody in this town, as y'all know, showed up, with the exception of those cold-blooded murderers who were hired by the Santa Fe Ring. That's right. They were all hiding at the Murphy Dolan store.
They were all hiding?
They were hiding.
In the store?
Yes, they were. Indecent.
And what happened after that service?
Well, what happened after the service, my dear husband, Mr. Alexander McSween, prominent attorney, put John's body into the casket with his own hands. Then John Newcomb and Dick Brewer, with all those darling curls of his, and Billy Wilson, and our Billy, they carried him outside and placed him in my garden. That coffin with sweet John in it, all tucked away, lowered into the grave, and covered with soil. Now I did manage to have, I threw in my lace hanky. Do you think I could get that back to him? Do you think it's possible? Do I need a court order?
No. Just proceed.
You know this is very difficult for you, and thank you for doing this. Is there anything else you'd like to add for the jury? For the
yes,
court?
I would like to say that I have known John Tunstall going on 2 years, and he is an honorable man. He doesn't gamble. He doesn't lie. As far as I know, bailiff, he's never been arrested by you or any of your cohorts. Is that true? Could you just give me a hot second here, sir? I'm sorry. I just have a little adjustment I need to make, if you don't mind. I know this is regular, but I have a little gift for the bailiff. I have a lot of friends here.
This is irregular.
Honey, you are highly irregular, Your Honor. I told you when y'all called me there was going to be a coming to Jesus meeting. Hell is coming here.
Please control.
Ah, yes, I'm in control. He passionately loved horses. As a matter of fact, his beloved horse, Colonel, was also severely and mortally abused by those outlaws from the Santa Fe Ring. That's right. They murdered his horse, his beloved horse. And you know, I'd like to say one more thing about Mr. Brady, okay? Now, what I will say is I don't know what his wife ever saw in him, but he did have good taste in jewelry. So I don't know what she's going to do with all that jewelry. She might have to sell it to get by, unless you boys got some. I don't know. But anyway, It's God's honest truth. It was the Santa Fe ring that did this. And you know, and I know, they are thieving bastards. That's right. Pardon my language. And there's no stopping them any more than there is stopping the Atlantic Ocean with a fork.
Thank you very much. Your witness?
No questions.
Well, I do have one more thing to say to dear. Excuse me, Your Honor.
I was just about to excuse you.
I'm excusing you for your rudeness at this courtroom. I just want to say one thing to Mr. Newcomb. Mr. Newcomb, now you know somebody usually gets shot for what they know. Thank you very much. And if it pleases the court, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, thank you for your time.
Now you are excused.
I am getting my satchel, and I would appreciate just another moment. Just one. I know we're on schedule here, Your Honor. I just need a moment. Please cast your eyes down. Cast them down. Thank you. Gentlemen, that's a thing of the past, isn't it? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I'll get my Bible. Y'all don't know what that is, I'm sure. Billy, darling, I'm going to give you John Sheriff. And I'm going to give you...
No.
Sheriff.
No.
Sheriff.
You're excused. No, you're excused.
Bailiff,
You're excused.
I am making...
Escort
You are
Mrs.
knocking my
McSween
mind
from
out.
the courtroom.
I'm making a citizen's arrest. Get back. Get back. I will have you soon.
Whoa, Mr. Fountain.
Yep.
Call your witness.
Oh, fix it.
Can't wait. I call John Wilson.
Territory calls John Wilson.
State your name, please.
John Batista Wilson.
Mr. Wilson, are you presently the Justice of the Peace for the town of Lincoln?
Yes, sir, I am.
Are you familiar with the report issued by the grand jury at the April 1878 term of the District Court in Lincoln?
I am.
Here is a report, Mr. Wilson. This is a copy of the report issued by that grand jury. Please note, Your Honor, this is the same report that's already been exhibited.
So noted.
Same report. Read it. Okay.
Any objection, Mr. Newcomb?
They don't have to prolong out.
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Wilson, will you please read the passage that I have marked?
The murder of John H. Tunstall for brutality and malice is without parallel and without a shadow of justification. By this inhuman act, our county has lost one of our best and most useful men, one who brought intelligence, industry, and capital to the development of Lincoln County.
Thank you so much. So, would you agree the grand jury ruled that the killing of Mr. Tunstall was murder?
Yes, sir. Cold-blooded murder.
And after getting the grand jury report as Justice of the Peace, what did you do?
I swore out warrants for Sheriff Brady and Deputy Matthews.
Did you also swear out warrants for Buck Morton and Tom Hill?
No, sir, because at that time we didn't know who had done the shooting.
So why did you issue a warrant for Brady and Matthews?
They were the law officers responsible for Mr. Tunstall's murder. Sheriff Brady solicited the posse that went out after to Tunstall's cow camp. And he then put Matthews in charge of picking the men who rode after Mr. Tunstall. That makes him and Sheriff Brady responsible for Mr. Tunstall's murder.
Now, you're not saying that Brady and Matthews were the men that fired the guns that killed Tombstone.
I am not. But they was in charge of them what done the killing. And it was their duty as law officers to keep him safe and not let him get murdered. Therefore, they got legal culpability for his murder. It was their duty to prevent his cold-blooded murder. There was no arrest warrant for Mr. Tunstall, and there was no justification at all for chasing after him with a posse.
Okay, thank you. So, after issuing those warrants, what did you do next?
I gave them to Mr. Antonio Martinez to enforce. He's the town constable. Mr. Martinez said that he was scared of Brady. He was pretty sure that if he went up against Brady all by himself, that Brady would resist with armed force. So he asked me to swear out some deputies, because he knew Brady and Matthews would resist arrest.
And did you do that?
I did. I swore out Mr. Waite and Mr. Antrim as deputies.
Did Constable Martinez, Mr. Wade, and Mr. Antrim, did they actually attempt to arrest Brady and Matthews with those warrants?
They did, but they met with armed resistance.
Mr. Wilson, were those warrants actually legal? Does a justice of the peace have the authority to issue an arrest warrant?
Certainly. It's in the law.
And can a deputy use force to arrest a person if he resists arrest?
Certainly. It's in the law.
What happened next in regard to those warrants?
The very next day, Governor Axtell come to town, and he met with Brady and James Dolan and Lawrence Murphy and other members of the Santa Fe Ring Party. After that meeting, Governor Axtell sent a man over to tell me that I was removed as Justice of the Peace and that my warrants was null and void.
The governor of the territory of New Mexico was meeting with the Ring Gang. How about that? Did he provide you a personal written notice of his order?
No, sir, he never did.
Did he tell you why you were removed as Justice of the Peace?
No, sir, he never did.
Well, by the way, was William Logan Reinerson in the meeting with Governor Axtell?
Yes, sir, he was.
You named Sheriff Brady, James Dolan, Lawrence Murphy, and Mr. Reinerson as being in that meeting together with the governor.
Yes, sir.
Are those men well known as members of this so-called Santa Fe Ring?
Oh, objection, objection. It calls for speculation on the part of the witness.
Sustained.
No more questions.
Mr. Wilson, when you issued the arrest warrants for Brady and Matthews, were you the elected Justice of the Peace?
I was the Justice of the Peace.
I ask you again, were you the elected Justice of the Peace?
I was appointed by the county commissioners.
Appointed? Would you repeat that?
I was appointed by the county commissioners.
So, you served at the discretion of the county commissioners.
They could appoint another JP if they wanted.
No more questions.
Mr. Wilson, after this meeting, Governor Axtell, after he illegally removed you as Justice of the Peace, what happened in regard to your office?
I was elected Justice of the Peace at the very next election, and I darn near got all the votes, too.
So the people were perfectly happy with you. They wanted you as Justice of the Peace. Are you still Justice of the Peace today?
Yes, sir, I sure am.
Nothing further.
Mr. Wilson, were you in Lincoln on the day that Sheriff Brady was shot?
I was.
Is there anything you haven't told us about that day?
What do you mean?
You were shot on that day, were you not, by Billy?
No, I don't know who shot me. I was hit by a stray bullet.
You were hit by that same promiscuous barrage of shots that killed Heineman. Is that right?
Yes.
And the shots came from the Tunstall Corral. Is that right?
Yes.
Why don't you tell the jury who shot you?
Because I don't know who shot me.
You don't know or you won't tell? Your Honor, no more questions.
Mr. Wilson, first of all, have you recovered from that unfortunate shot?
No, sir, not completely.
Sorry to hear that. What were you doing when you were accidentally shot?
I was bent over working in my garden over by the Murphy Dolan store.
And if I may ask, where were you hit?
Over by the I was
Where
hit
in
in my
your body were you
backside.
hit?
In my backside.
In plain words, in your butt.
Yes, if you can say that.
Here we go again. Mr. Wilson, this is very important. Everybody else seems to see a lot of heads above a 10-foot wall. Did you see any heads raised above the corral wall during the shooting?
No, I did not.
No more questions.
You are excused, Mr. Wilson. Thank you, Mr. Fountain. Mr. Fountain, would you call your next witness?
I call William Logan Ryderson.
Territory calls William Logan Reinerson.
Mr. Reinerson, when John Henry Tunstall was shot, were you at that time the Attorney General of the 3rd Judicial District?
I was.
Are you the Attorney General today?
No. My term expired last month.
Were you in the meeting? Were you in the meeting with Governor Axtell when he removed Mr. Wilson as the Lincoln Justice of the Peace?
I was.
Do you know why he removed Mr. Wilson as Justice of the Peace?
Because his appointment was illegal.
Why was his appointment illegal?
Because he was appointed by the county commissioners.
How long have you been an attorney in New Mexico?
13 years, same as you.
True. Are you familiar with the laws of the Territory of New Mexico as enacted by the territorial legislature?
Yes.
Does the law of New Mexico permit the county commissioner to appoint a justice of the peace? Come on, Mr. Reinerson. Do I have to read Section 40 of the territorial law to you, an attorney for 13 years?
Under certain circumstances.
Under certain circumstances, it can be appointed. And exactly what are those circumstances?
If the office becomes vacant between elections.
If the office becomes vacant, a new one can be appointed. Are those not the exact circumstances in which Mr. Wilson was appointed Justice of the Peace?
I don't know.
I do. Those are the exact circumstances in which Mr. Wilson was appointed by the county commissioners. And Mr. Wilson had been Justice of the Peace for over a year. Is that not true?
I don't know.
You don't know. And during that period, no citizen objected to Mr. Wilson being Justice of the Peace. Nobody questioned his authority. Is that correct?
I don't know.
You don't know. So is your answer. I don't know. You know the real reason that Governor Axtell wanted to remove Mr. Wilson. Don't you know the real reason? It was so that the governor could declare Mr. Wilson's warrants for Brady and Matthews null and void. Is that not true?
It was because he was not elected.
Your Honor, I submit this letter written by this witness, written to James Dolan and John Riley on February 14, 1878.
Objection. I strongly object. It's immaterial, Your Honor.
Your Honor, this is a very important letter. Cannot be more material to this case. Please look at it.
The exhibit is admitted.
Your Honor, that is a private letter between two private parties. It has no place in this courtroom.
Mr. Anderson, take that. Mr. Anderson, for the juror, please read the sender's address on the letter. Who sent it?
Law Office of William L. Reinerson, District Attorney, 3rd Judicial District, February 14, 1878.
Came from your office, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Reinerson, did you write that letter?
Yes.
Is that your handwriting on the letter?
Yes.
And who, I say who, is the letter addressed to?
Mr. John Riley and Mr. James Dolan.
Please read the salutation exactly as it's written.
Friends Riley and Dolan.
Friends Riley and Dolan. Sound to you like a standard business letter? Friends Riley and Dolan. Indeed, Mr. Reinerson, read the very last paragraph of your letter to Friends Riley and Dolan.
It may be that the villain John Batista Wilson will play into their hands as alcalde. If so, he should be moved around a little. Shake that McSween outfit up till it shouts out and squares up, and then shake it out of Lincoln. I will aid to punish the scoundrels all I can. Get the people with you. Control John Patrone if possible. You know how to do it. Have good men about to aid Brady, and be assured I shall help you all I can, for I believe there was never found a more scoundrelly set than that outfit.
Never found a more scoundrelly set. You write, fairly gentle voice he has, you write, shake that McSween outfit up till it shouts out, and then shake it out of Lincoln. Shake it out, get rid of him. What does that mean?
Nothing.
Nothing. Please read the two sentences just above the last paragraph.
It must be made hot for them. All the hotter the better. Especially is this necessary now that it has been discovered that there is no hell.
After it's been discovered there is no hell. You write, it must be made hot for them. The hotter, the better. What does that mean?
It don't mean nothing.
Mr. Reinerson, first, I don't know. Now, it don't mean nothing. Mr. Reinerson, you are Attorney General, the highest law officer in the district. Yet in this letter, you know what you're doing? You're advocating direct physical violence against your political opponents, aren't you?
No, certainly not.
That letter is the following. It is nothing more than an open invitation to murder. Isn't that true?
Absolutely not.
What does it mean? And I quote in your letter, and you say, now that it has been discovered that there is no hell.
Just an opinion.
Just an opinion. So, let me give you my opinion. If there's no hell, there's no divine punishment for violent crimes. Is that what you're telling your friends, Riley and Dolan?
No.
And with no divine punishment to worry about, you're promising your friends, Riley and Dolan, that you will make darn certain that there'll be no earthly punishment for their crimes. Isn't that exactly what you're telling them?
No.
It seems to me in that letter, gentlemen of the jury, Mr. Reinerson has given an open invitation to murder and a moral justification for doing it. What's the date on that letter?
February 14, 1878.
February 14th, just 4 days before guess who was murdered? John Henry Tombstone. As I could tell in your letter, you're advocating the murder of Mr. Tombstone.
No, my letter had nothing to do with Mr. Tombstone.
Okay, Mr. Anderson, I don't know how you expect the jury to believe that feeble story. I certainly don't. Members of the jury, remember what it says here. The road to hell is paved with lies. You know that. I know that. Mr. Reinerson knows that. I have no more questions.
Mr. Reinerson, are you a member of this mythical Santa Fe ring?
I'm under the control of no ring, and I've never been under any such control.
No more questions?
You are excused, Mr. Reinerson.
Ready, man?
Mr. Fountain, call your next witness.
I call Mr. Henry Antrim, alias the Kid. Your Honor, I would like to request that these handcuffs be removed from Mr. Antrim before he testifies.
Objection! Mr. Antrim is a man-killer. He is too dangerous to be offered that courtesy. He cannot be trusted, unshackled. The court wouldn't be safe.
Wait, come on, Your Honor, wait a minute, please. That's a vile comment. That's a lie. It's extremely prejudicial to say that in court. Mr. Antrim is an innocent man. He told us proven guilty. What do you mean he's a man-killer? I repeat, an innocent man. Please instruct the jury to disregard those comments.
Jury, you are to disregard Mr. Newcomb's last comment.
I'd like to further request that you censure Mr. Newcomb for those vile comments. How can Mr. Antrim get a fair trial with such detestable tactics by the prosecuting attorney?
Mr. Newcomb, please control your demeanor in the courtroom. The defendant will remain in handcuffs.
Please state your name.
Henry Antrim.
Are you also known as William Bonney?
Yes.
In addition to the names you have given, are you also known as the Kid?
Yes, sir, I am. But not Billy Kid that I know of.
Okay. Most important question of the day. Mr. Antrim, did you shoot Sheriff Brady?
I did not.
Were you in Tunstall's corral when Sheriff Brady was shot?
I was.
What was the purpose of you being there?
I was there to protect Mr. McSween from being murdered.
Please explain that to the court.
The day before, me and some others met with Mr. McSween and John Chisholm's South Springs Ranch. Mr. McSween said that he was going to testify at the April term of the district court so as to clear his name. He said he knowed that Brady and Dolan were planning to arrest and kill him before he could do so. He said they would make it appear like an accident. He asked us to be in Lincoln to protect him.
By us, whom exactly do you mean?
It was me, Fred Waite, John Middleton, Frank McNabb, Henry Brown, Jim French, Sam Corbett, and Robert Weideman.
So, in total, there were 8 of you, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you carry, at that time, you carrying an arrest warrant for Sheriff Brady and Deputy Matthews?
Yes, sworn by Mr. Wilson for the murder of John Tunstall.
So the Kid had an arrest warrant, okay? Had you attempted to serve those warrants previously?
Yes, sir.
What happened when you tried to serve the warrants?
We found Brady and Matthews in the Murphy Dolan store, but they had soldiers from Fort Stanton with them. We told Brady he was under arrest, but he drew down on us. The soldiers drew down too. Brady said I was under arrest, and he took my Winchester. We had no choice but to back off.
We had several witnesses who have said that you ran, after the shooting, you ran out from behind the corral to Mr. Brady after the shooting. Did you indeed run into the street?
Yes, sir.
What was your purpose in doing that?
I wanted to take my Winchester back from Brady. He had no call to take it from me.
Were you present when Mr. Tunstall was murdered?
Yes.
Please, tell the court, what did you see?
I seen the party first, because I was riding behind. We was down a ways in the canyon when a crowd of men come up on the crest behind us, riding hard. I looked back and recognized Buck Morton, Tom Hill, and George Heineman as being with the party, which was 15 to 20 strong. They commenced firing as quick as they seen us, without saying a word. I rode forward and shouted a warning to John. He was riding a good horse. Then I rode some distance toward a line of boulders for shelter. Turning in my saddle, I seen John stop when he seen the posse. Right quickly, I had heard 2 solitary shots. I knowed then that they'd murdered John.
Did you fire back at the party?
Yet no, sir.
Who do you hold responsible for the murder of Mr. Tunstall?
I hold responsible Buck Morton and Tom Hill. They done the killing. But Brady and Matthews put them up to it.
Sheriff Brady. Yes, you believe that Sheriff Brady and his deputy Matthews masterminded the killing of Mr. Tunstall?
Yes, them 2 killed John just as much as Buck and Tom done it.
Thank you. I have no more questions.
Billy, can I call you that?
No.
Mr. Antrim, do you expect us to believe that you did not shoot Sheriff Brady?
Like I told Colonel Fountain, I did not.
Did you fire a revolver that morning?
I did.
Did you fire that revolver more than once?
Yes.
Who did you shoot at?
I did not fire at Mr. Brady.
I ask you again. Now give me a straight answer, Mark. Who did you shoot at?
I did not fire at Mr. Brady.
Your Honor, please instruct the witness to answer the question.
Mr. Antrim, you are sworn to tell the truth. Please answer truthfully.
Now, Mr. Antrim, who did you shoot at?
I fired at Matthews.
So you admit it. You tried to murder Mr. Matthews.
Oh, wait a minute. Objection here. There's putting words in the witness's mouth. This trial concerns the unhappy death of Mr. Brady. It's not about Mr. Matthews.
Your Honor, if the defendant is willing to murder one man, he could just as easily murder another man.
The objection is overruled.
So, Mr. Antrim, you were attempting to murder Mr. Matthews.
No, I was not.
Why did you shoot at him?
I was responding to Matthews shooting at us.
Well, Mr. Antrim, if you didn't kill Sheriff Brady, who did?
I don't know.
Were you present behind the corral wall when Sheriff Brady was shot?
I was there.
So who killed Sheriff Brady?
I don't know. I didn't see.
Who killed George Heineman?
I don't know. I didn't see.
Listen now, 2 men were shot in cold blood. By your own admission, you were with the men doing the shooting. They couldn't have been standing more than 12 inches from you, and yet you want this court to believe that you don't know who did the shootings?
I don't know who done it.
Well, who do you think done it?
I don't know.
Mr. Antrim, now listen. Lying under oath is a crime. Did you kill Sheriff Brady?
Objection. That question's already been asked and already been answered.
Sustained.
Was revenge the reason you killed Sheriff Brady?
I did not kill Brady.
No more questions.
Mr. Antrim, last time. One more time. As a man sworn to tell God's truth, did you kill Brady?
I did not kill Brady.
No more questions.
Mr. Antrim, you may step down.
Your Honor, we rest this portion of the defense.
Mr. Fountain, are you ready for closing arguments?
Closing arguments, I am, Your Honor. Gentlemen of the jury, territorial law places a dreadful burden upon your shoulders today. You have to decide whether a man is to be convicted of an awful crime or not. You heard Mr. Antrim testify. What happened? He said he did not kill Sheriff Brady. In our territory, in order to convict Mr. Antrim or anybody of killing, in this case Sheriff Brady, as the court has charged, first, you must be satisfied from the evidence presented by the court, by the prosecution, by the witnesses, to the exclusion of all reasonable doubt. That's the law. Whether or not Mr. Antrim actually fired the shot that caused the death of Brady has to be determined by the evidence presented here. And second, that such shots was fired by Mr. Antrim with the premeditated design to effect the death of Mr. Brady. Those are the two requirements of the law: evidence and premeditation. The law further charges that you must be convinced of both. Both of those requirements by law beyond a reasonable doubt before a defendant can be properly and legally convicted. If you find that the guilt of the defendant is not fully proved by evidence, keep using that word, then a reasonable doubt exists in your mind, and the law demands that you find Mr. Antrim innocent. You cannot guess a man into a murder conviction. You all now know there were 8 men behind that wall. Bullets were flying all over the place. Only one man is on trial for murder. Why? Why one man? Why this one man? This man who was promised a pardon by the governor who never showed up today. They wanted Billy out of the picture. He knew too much. The ring gang wanted Billy out. He's the one on trial for murder. That's why he was picked. Members of the jury, remember, Mr. Antrim does not need to even prove that he did not shoot Brady. That's not how we work in the law here. The prosecution may have implied that with its questioning and its posturing. He doesn't have to prove that he didn't do it. The prosecution has to prove that he did it. Evidence. A man is innocent until proven otherwise. The prosecution did not approach proving Mr. Antrim guilty. The only evidence they gave you were unreliable witnesses who saw a bunch of heads. I never saw a head fire a gun. Anybody mentioned that they saw arms, a rifle? No, heads above a 10-foot wall, that's all we got. That's not a reasonable doubt. I don't know what is. Whoever did the shooting did so not over a 10-foot wall. They did so through the porthole, of which the witnesses agreed were there. Deputy Matthews confirmed those portholes were there. The men who fired those shots shot through those holes. They didn't raise their heads above a 10-foot wall. That's ridiculous, false, farcical concept. The men who were shooting were actually never seen. They are unknown. Do not convict one man, Mr. Andrew, for a crime that any one of the 8 men might have done. My client rests his life in your hands.
Mr. Newcomb, is the prosecution ready?
Yes, Your Honor. Please, the court. Members of the jury, there is much confusion about this case. This trial is about the unfortunate killing of Mr. Tunstall. I'm sorry, this trial is not about the unfortunate killing of Mr. Tunstall. Henry Antrim is on trial for the foul murder of Sheriff Brady. Fix that firmly in your minds. The proof that Henry Antrim committed murder upon Sheriff Brady is cognate and irresistible. He was behind the corral wall from where the killing shots came from. He was observed there by Mr. Sacknino Baca and Mr. Bonifacio Baca. Mr. Fountain says the wall was 10 feet tall. He says the wall was 8 feet tall. Did he ever mention that he went out and measured it himself? He's speculating. That's his opinion. Mr. Antrim was seen brazenly running into the street after the killings. The defendant admitted so himself. He ran into the street from behind the corral wall immediately after Sheriff Brady and Deputy Hyman were killed. You know that as a fact. Mr. Antrim took an oath to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. Yet he did not tell the truth on the stand. He said he didn't know who was doing the shooting. What is he hiding? He was standing right there next to the men who were firing, yet he claims he doesn't know who they were. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. That's all we got from him under oath. Remember, if a defendant is lying about one thing, he almost certainly lies about another. Mr. Antrim killed Sheriff Brady in cold blood. He shot him down in the middle of the street with no warning. Sheriff Brady was simply walking down the street on official business, and Mr. Antrim brutally shot him in the head. And we know why. He was taking revenge for the unfortunate death of Mr. Tunstall. But the law does not recognize vengeance as a justification for murder. And yet, that is exactly what Mr. Antrim was doing. He was wreaking vengeance on Sheriff Brady. The excuse that he had warrants for the arrest of Sheriff Brady, and so by implication he had the legal right to kill Sheriff Brady, is laughable. It's mere pettifoggery. The warrants were completely illegal, as testified to by the defense's own witness, and they were completely unjustified. So do your duty as jurors. Sheriff Brady is dead. The poor man is in his grave, doing his job as a law enforcement officer, protecting the good citizens of Lincoln County. But at least he can still have justice. Please, I ask you, deliver justice to the people of Lincoln. And also, and this is important, deliver justice to Sheriff Brady's poor bereaved family. Convict Mr. Antrim of this horrific and shameful deed. Justice is in your hands.
Members of the jury, it is my duty to instruct you as to the law. The defendant in this case, Henry Antrim, alias Kid, is charged with having committed the crime of murder by inflicting a fatal gunshot wound from a premeditated design to effect the death of Sheriff Brady. The case is here for trial by a change of venue from the county of Lincoln. In the matter of determining what your verdict shall be, it will be improper for you to consider anything except the evidence before you. The facts alleged in the indictment, if true, constitute murder in the first and highest degree. There is no evidence tending to show that the killing of Brady was either justifiable or excusable in law. There is no evidence before you showing that the killing of Brady is murder in any other degree than the first. To constitute murder in the first degree, it is necessary that the killing should have been perpetrated from a premeditated design to effect the death of the person killed. As to this premeditated design, I charge you that to render designed to kill premeditated, it is not necessary that such design to kill should exist in the mind for any considerable length of time before the killing. If the design to kill is completely formed in the mind, but for a moment before inflicting the fatal wound, it would be premeditated and would be the same as though the design to kill had existed for a long time. If the defendant was present, encouraging, inciting, aiding, abetting, advising, or commanding the killing of Brady, he is as much as guilty as though he fired the fatal shot. This then is the law. No other punishment than death can be imposed for the murder in the first degree.
The jury foreman has informed me that the jury has made a decision, and I have received the decision here.
Mr. Antrim, please stand. Bailiff, read the decision of the jury.
We, the jury, find the defendant, William Antrim, guilty.
Mr. Antrim, please approach the bench. Henry Antrim, alias Kidd, alias William Bonney, you have been found guilty of the first-degree murder of William Brady by a jury of your peers. It is hereby ordered that you, Henry Antrim, alias Kidd, alias William Bonney, be taken to the prison in the township of Lincoln, New Mexico, and there, on Friday, the 13th day of May, in the year of our Lord, 1881, between the hours of 9 of the clock in the forenoon and 3 of the clock in the afternoon, you are to be taken from that prison to some suitable and convenient place of execution. And that then and there on that day, and between the aforesaid hours, you are to be hanged by the neck until your body be dead.
Billy, please, a word for the Mesilla Times newspaper and for the people of New Mexico. Why did you do it? Why did you shoot Sheriff Brady?
I didn't. I told the truth on the stand, as God is my witness. But the ring gang and their tool, Judge Bristol here, is out to get me hanged. It don't no matter none what the evidence.
Do you expect a pardon from the current governor, Governor Wallace?
Considering that he promised me a pardon in person when we met, he sure should. Don't know that he will, though. I think it hard that I should suffer the extreme penalties of the law for something I didn't do.
That's enough. Come on.
Billy, one more question.
No more questions. That's all enough. Let's go.